At home.
What were you saying, Tony?
I just stayed home. Was working on the slide all day. So
Nice. What was it? What's it like in Atlanta? Is it starting to feel humid, or what's going on there?
it is, but it's not too bad. It's nice, very green out here. Trees, everything's it's a beautiful place. A lot of hiking, a lot of outdoor things to do.
Yeah.
So everything's pretty much 20 or 30 minutes away.
This was the first weekend that it felt like life was beginning to get back to normal. Like there's been times like, and I was in Texas, I was like, okay, this state kind of has things open again, but California has been so locked down that there's just not much to do. But when I was driving around and looking at stuff, like this was the first weekend, I was like, wow, this feels like life is coming back. And then you look at sports and you're seeing the arenas, and it's like, holy crap, this feels good. But how was it in Atlanta? Was there a lot of things going on?
Yeah, over here it's weird because a lot of people don't really wear masks. So you're in the gym, no mask. It's just different. So
Different states, different rules, for sure. But the good neuse is that I don't know when I think it's like June 15th. They're saying that the mask mandate in some states is already down, but I know in California, I think they're going to remove it, and it just shows, like we got enough people that are getting vaccinated. We have enough, people that have, if they've gotten it, or and now they're sort of immune. But I think in general, whatever you want to call it, herd immunity is happening, and there's rumblings of us trying to put together some sort of R&R. I don't know if it can happen, but I think it's exciting because, like we've been telling everybody, the business has already had so much growth the last year, and you add in what we've done on Zoom, but once we can get back to seeing each other again, it's going to be really, really exciting. So, okay, guys, we're going to start. I know there's been requests for music. Stacy is working on that. We're going to have that ready to go for next Tuesday with a slideshow. We've had an incredible list of speakers. We're actually coming into our second phase of speakers. So Tony's finishing the first phase. Our second phase begins next week with Jared Nwamwe, which some of you guys have heard. Today, you guys are very lucky. You guys get a speaker who's only been in ownership for 8 months. A year ago, I think, Tony, was it a year ago, like this week, we were coming back from COVID. I think you had like 3 guys in your team and you were just trying to figure it out and how we're going to get back to work. Boy, what a year can do for a person, especially in our business. A year later, Tony Chapman has been an owner for 7.5 months. He's got 2 promotions to ownership, 3 assistant managers. So he's probably going to have 5 owners, not probably, will have 5 owners within the next 3 months. So 5 owners in his first year. I'm sure he's going to promote a couple more before the year ends in Atlanta. He's already got big money saved. All his offices that he promotes are performing at a high level. And a year ago, he was a leader in the field on calls like this, just trying to figure out his situation, how to get promoted. So if you're a leader on the call, I would network with Tony on how to change your situation fast. And one of the reasons why was because Tony really focused on the cycle development. So that's the topic we're going to go over today, which I can't wait to take a bunch of notes. And by the way, if I didn't wish it already, happy Memorial Day to everybody. I hope everyone had a safe and healthy holiday. Tony, I'm so proud of you and I'm excited for your future. You just moved your life across the United States to Atlanta because Fresno wasn't big enough for you and your goals. But your background's really interesting. You said you came from a family of immigrants and how your upbringing was pretty crazy because of that whole situation. So can you talk to me about how your family got to this country and what that was like for you?
yeah, my father was actually a soldier. My mom was a nurse. My dad actually fought during the Vietnam War. He actually got shot. That's how he met my mom.
Whoa.
And during that phase, it was pretty rough because they were actually forced into concentration camps. And my parents were lucky where they got sponsored and actually got the chance to come to America. And they pretty much came to a new country, didn't know the language, didn't know the culture, had no education, had no money. And growing up, it was pretty hard because my parents had to work random jobs just to provide for me, my brother and sister. And we grew up in a little small town in Memphis where we were the only Asian family there, and it was kind of hard. So
Yeah, that's crazy. And you told me that basically you were born in Memphis, you lived there, but then you moved to San Diego when you were in high school.
Mhm.
After high school, you joined the military. And so when I met you, I was like, this guy seems very serious. Do you feel like you got a lot of your discipline and your structure from the military? And how was that experience for you?
I learned a lot from my parents growing up. So my parents always taught me to be very humble and no matter what the situation, just to make the most out of it. And they always taught me no matter what you did in life, always put 100% and you'll get rewarded back for it. So watching them, just come to a country where they had nothing and they eventually became business owners. I watched my parents work for 15, 20 years and they became business owners, and it's just kind of amazing what they accomplished.
Yeah. you hear a lot of speakers get on this call and they this was their first job for a lot of us, or maybe it was your first job after college, you worked some other jobs. For Tony, it was different. Tony came into our business at, 38, 39 years old. He wasn't a kid. He owned a business before this. He owned a nutrition store. You also were doing a light fixture business as well, Tony, correct?
Yeah, I was actually selling window tint, business to business. Yeah.
Nice. I still need to get that window tint from you. So Tony came into our business not like he wasn't a new graduate. This wasn't his first job, but he had already had the experience of being an entrepreneur and loved it and didn't really want to work for people. But most people who have owned a business before this, they look at our business, they might like it, but they really don't like the fact that they have to go entry level to start out and go door to door to begin their career and move up back into that ownership position. So Tony, what was it for you that made you look at it and say, hey, even though I got to start entry level, I'm willing to do this and to move up fast, just like you did?
I remember when I ran my small business nutrition store. I invested all my money up front, didn't borrow any money from the banks. And I actually didn't turn a profit for 2 years actually when I sold the business. I worked every day opening and closing by myself, and it was so stressful. 3 days when customers wouldn't walk in, I wouldn't make any money. So I was probably pretty much better off just taking the day off, but I couldn't afford to close the store down. And the overhead was so expensive. When I came into the business, I'm a numbers guy, and the person that interviewed me kind of broke down the numbers, saying if I did this for 2 to 3 years, I get a chance to open a business, make over 6 figures a year, no overhead, no startup for the first month. And I was like, wow, what do I sign up? And I even asked him, can I do it in 1 year? And he kind of laughed at me. So
yeah. Well, Tony, I remember last summer I called Larry. I was like, hey, I got this guy Tony. He's got a family, but he's willing to make sacrifices. And so we came up with the idea for Tony to go to Fresno for 6 months and open up an office. And he said, if I go there, I'm going to crush it. I'm going to promote people. I'm going to save a lot of money. And so we created a contract with his wife. And maybe some of you guys heard this before, but I literally printed up a contract. We went to dinner, several dinners it took to get her on board. But Tony has lived up to his own expectations and he came back, fulfilled the contract, and then created a verbal contract with his wife to say, hey, I've gotten really good at this business. I want to go to a much bigger market, go to Atlanta. And so he's moving a crew. He just moved out there. You're getting the office this week, Tony?
yes.
That's great. Well, we're really excited for you. We know you have big goals. You want to become a regional by the end of the year, which would be unheard of. We've heard records of how fast someone have gotten promoted to national. You're on track. If less than 3 years to get promoted to national if you keep it up. So guys, today Tony's topic is cycle development. We've talked a lot about training. We've talked a lot about, I know Austin last week covered initial training. This time of year for recruiting is so huge for us. And so it's important if you're a leader on this call that you really take notes today, because this topic is going to definitely relate to the things you're going to experience in someone's first 4 weeks, because that's sort of the time frame when you guys are going to have the opportunity to retain someone, to get them locked in. And so the more you do right, just increases the odds of that person sticking to the business and looking at this and saying, hey, maybe I can take this serious as a career. So Tony's going to cover it today. Tony, we're going to have a lot of questions. So please, if you guys are on the chat, fire away. If you're on this call, I know Memorial Day was yesterday. Text message your other leaders, send emails to the other offices, tell them to hop on, because I think this topic is going to blow your mind. And we want to get as much from this as possible. So Tony, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Awesome. So week one is just all about training and building relationships. So why is week one so important? We kind of call this like the dating phase or the honeymoon phase in the business, because when a new starts the business, they're not sure they actually want to do this. We're not actually sure they're actually going to last. So the most important person in the business is always the new start. It's not the leader, it's not the manager, it's not the owner. And it's important from day one to build this relationship with that person, to make them feel special and show them that they're welcomed. And what I used to do from day one, I would always go by ports. I have laminates, I have a notebook. From day one, I would always set my new starts up for success to make sure that they were successful from day one. And another important thing here is belt loop theory. So belt loop theory is very important, because people who actually work harder and produce more if there's like a strong connection from the start. Like I said, introduce your leaders to the managers, to the owners, give them an office tour. And that's pretty much what you do there. And another important thing for week one is the morning break-even breakfast. So this is usually done day 2 to day 3. And to actually discuss how many applications the person needs, their overhead, to cover for every week, every month. And also to go over how we get paid, the training, also training schedule, the hours, the commissions, and also to address any issues that they have about the business. And another important thing here is to have a set schedule for day 1 to day 6 training. Office versus the field, always establish a game plan, office policy, atmosphere, field, and also you want to emphasize no call, no show, no opportunity. And then once you go to the field, this is very important. In the field, you have to kind of teach them how to make money instead of showing. So the learning pyramid states that we retain 10% of what we actually read, and we retain 90% of what we teach others. Most of the people in the business, most of us are actually visual learners. So we actually learn from watching others and actually doing it ourselves. And what you want to do in this week also, look at every new start. Visualize where this person's gonna be in the next 6 to 12 months. And in order for that person to be successful in the business, you also need to be the type of people you want on your team, whether it's a leader or a manager. So you have to be the example of what you want on your team. And another thing we want to do here is we want to kind of fish for outside negatives. The hours, the commission, first paycheck, training pay, the process. It's important that we fix or correct these issues sooner than later. And now we go to week 2.
Hold on, Tony. So I have a couple questions. First of all, I love all this stuff. Now, can you break down a little bit of that break-even breakfast? Because I think some people really forget how important it is for someone coming in. They've never done commission before, right? They're probably nervous. I was. My sort of conversation about money, about paychecks, about training pay, I did that in my prelim with my owner. And I'm not saying every owner is going to have the time to do that, but I was a little bit of a different experience. But everybody needs this conversation, right? So can you go over exactly the approach to that when negatives come up? Because sometimes people start and they're really confused. They still don't get how they get their first check. They still don't understand the training pay. They don't understand the commissions, and maybe they were confused. So I think we want to hit those on the head. So what's the approach going into this meeting, and how does that get communicated back to the owner?
So what I usually want to do is in either day 2 or day 3, I contact a person. I tell them, hey, it's coming an hour early. Let's actually go out to breakfast. Let's sit down, and we have a break-even sheet. So I go over their expenses for every month, for the month, and I go over the expenses for the week. And we just divide that by how many applications we need. Let's say they need 6 applications a week, and that's the break-even for that week. So, but our goal is we don't want them to make the bare minimum just to get by. Our goal is to make sure these people are doing 10 to 12 applications a week. That way they're actually saving money and actually be able to go through the business and actually, not living paycheck to paycheck. Because I remember when I first came into the business, it was a little rough for me because I didn't know the training pay. I didn't know the schedule. I didn't know the hours and everything. And the good thing about the break-even breakfast, you're able to discuss when the first paycheck is, how much it's going to be, the second paycheck, go over the bonuses that we have, and just break everything down for them. That way, answer any questions they have about it also. So it's very important that we do that.
And if you're a leader, let's say a leader does this break-even breakfast and they notice some red flags, what should they do? What should be their first thing?
First thing you should do is actually go to the manager and owner and just kind of sit down with them, introduce them. Hey, this is my new start. This is Mike. I'm looking at his expenses. His overhead's a little high. It's about $4,000 to $5,000 a month. Here's anything we can kind of do to help this guy out. And we just kind of sit down and kind of go over a little game plan.
Yeah, my recommendation for any new leader, if you're doing a break-even breakfast with someone, or you're going over the training, the pay, have a top leader shadow you, or maybe do it while you watch them. And even if you're doing it after you've done training, but there's somebody that brings up something, don't just try to solve it yourself. Bring it to the manager, have them take a look at it, have them have the conversation. These conversations in the first week sometimes are make or break. If someone has a good conversation with you, it can make them stick to this for another 2-3 weeks. If the conversation doesn't go well, they might say, you know what, hey, maybe this isn't for me. You guys got to treat this first week like it's a newborn baby. It's very fragile. Every conversation matters. Every single one matters. So the better you are at these, the more you get the manager involved. Don't take these people for granted when they start on your team. The other thing that I liked that it says here is recruiting does not stop once they start day 1. So what does that mean, Tony, that recruiting doesn't stop even after day 1?
That means you're still doing interviews and you're still going to build your team. So the main thing about this is you want to interview as many people as you can. Just because you have a new start doesn't mean, you focus on the new start, but you always want to have interviews you're taking every day. You always want to have a day of vote. So.
And I remember, we talked about how even once you recruit them, you don't stop recruiting them, right? So it's kind of like, just because you recruit someone on your team, you can't look at it like they're going to just be there. It's kind of like you get into a relationship with someone, you worked really hard to get into a relationship with them, then you stop doing the things you did. You can't stop doing the things you did, which means building relationships further, doing those dinners, getting to know their spouses, and people ask, how soon should I do stuff? Right away, right? If there's a spouse, don't wait. Don't wait for anything. And it's really, really important. I mean, I've been told this many times, and I know, Tony, we've talked about it. Use all of your clubs in your golf bag. What does that mean? Well, you might be a person that can relate to a person, but what if you're not the best at relating, but you have somebody else in your office that's really good at relating to that specific person? Maybe they have kids and you don't have kids. Maybe they're military and you're not military, right? Maybe they're a little bit older and they have more experience and you're younger. Well, you want to use, as soon as you possibly can, all of the resources either in your office or outside of your office through Zoom or any way you can to get these people to see more, right? The more they see earlier, the better. And that's going to increase the odds of that person in their first week having those good gut feelings like, you know what? I've seen enough. I'm going to take this serious. So I love it. Really, really good stuff, Tony. And please, guys, ask questions. Tony's got 5 slides. Each one will be a different topic, but we'd love for you guys to get engaged. So Tony, continue.
Okay, the next one, conversation instilling confidence. So the main thing for this week is to actually do the pre-solo dinner. So preempt them the day before they actually go solo. And you want to sit down with them, take them out to dinner, in case they have any questions, they need help. 80% of the dinner is actually getting to know that person and building that relationship. So I'm focusing on them the whole time at the dinner, ask them questions. I'm finding out what they like to do. I'm just relating to them. And the main thing you want to do with this phase this week also is when they actually go solo, you actually want to check in with them when they're doing the second lap. So give them a call, see how they're doing. Make sure they're doing okay, see how their day's going. If they have any issues, problems, concerns, it's very important that you're actually there for them if they're needed. So most people in the business actually quit during this week because they don't have a support group or they get frustrated in the field where they just kind of get dropped off. No one's trying to help them out. No one's there, So also another important thing here is to instill the law of averages and have faith in the system, the 8, the 5, the 4, the 3s, and pretty much fish for outside negatives outside of the business, and to kind of go over the most important days here of the business is AM and PM ATMO. So I know AM ATMO, we practice pitch, work on the issues, concerns that they actually have in the field, objections, whether it's late objections, early objections, the close, and just kind of ask them, what are you actually struggling with? And PM ATMO is very important because this is used to kind of break down their days and kind of go over the tracking sheet, help coach development, help them get better. And the main thing you want to do for this week is you actually want to spend that Sunday with your new start. So give them a call, talk, hey, so what are you doing this Sunday? What do you like to do for fun? Whether it's play golf, baseball, football, and whatever they're going to do, guess what? I'm going to tag along. Or maybe you could do like a little breakfast or dinner, and I'm going to ask them to invite their spouse. Because I want to get to know the spouse, and I want her, him and her, if they have any questions about the business, I can actually answer it and kind of fish for any negatives. And another thing what I used to do on Sundays is I would always take my guys to the field. So it's a day I use for them in the field, and we just kind of go together, have fun. We do a breakfast in the morning, we go to the field, and I just kind of help them kind of listen to their pitch, make sure they're doing okay. So that's very important for that week also.
So what I'm hearing from this is that, I think the reason why, if you guys are listening, Tony went from, the field to assistant management. And guys, as an assistant manager, Tony was only there for 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, he did everything. He killed the field, learned prelims, he saved 10 grand, and then he went and opened up. And in such a short period of time, he's building his organization. And a big part of it is that, of course, we work a lot, and that part of our training program that helps you guys get promoted is the fact that we allow you to work more so you can, produce more and get ahead faster. But Tony utilizes Sundays. And I think for a lot of you guys in your team building, are you going to spend every Sunday with all of your people? Absolutely not. But Tony was like, hey, I don't want to be in the field. I want to be an owner. I want to be in the field as little time as possible. So what's the fastest route? And he figured out that the better relationships he had with his people, the faster he was going to move up, because those people would now be more committed, develop skills faster, and get promoted to leadership. So Tony, you talked about spending Sundays with your people, right? How did you look at that? Because a lot of people, they just say, hey, I've already spent so much time in the business. And again, we all have errands. I'm not saying you can't do other stuff, but you did. I remember so many Sundays you were with your guys, whether it was in the field or just spending time with them. You have a wife, you have a child, right? How did you look at making those sacrifices compared to other people?
It was an investment that I was willing to make. So what I would do on Sundays is I would actually go over to production of the team. I would find my leader who was kind of struggling, who had a kind of a bad week. And I tell him, hey, let's go out on Sunday, just make you some extra money. That way, when you get your paycheck in a couple of weeks, I don't want you to have a bad paycheck. So let's go out there and just have fun, drop a couple apps, And once I started doing that, these people started following me more. And eventually on Sundays, probably like 5 or 6 weeks, I actually go out to breakfast together, we go out in the field together, and we just had fun. We just built that relationship because I treat these people like they were my family. And these were like, when I started the business, I kind of sacrificed my friends. I had no friends in the business. And what's funny, because all my best friends, all my friends now are actually the people who are in my organization, who I work with, because I spend so much time with them outside of the business. They're like my best friends. We go to lunch, we do dinner, we go to the gym together, we do everything together. So it's like a family that I built, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah. And that's something that I think people got to understand. It's not like you're spending Sundays for no reason. You're building relationships with people that you can have relationships for many, many years. I mean, people that you can accomplish a lot with, build tons of success with, and it can change your life. And you guys have heard the quote that when people join your team, obviously you can change their life, but the reality is they can change your life. When you have those special people that you meet and you develop those bonds with, and you grow together. I mean, it's one of the best feelings you could ever have. And I have a lot of friends, but the friends I've made in the business where we've gone to battle and succeeded and made sacrifices, it's just, it gives you goosebumps, because those are the things you remember forever, because they really do change your life. So again, guys, the moral of that story is Sundays are important, right? If you're looking at building your team, especially early, then you got to plan it in advance. You got to say, hey, what are you up to next Sunday? You can't just spring it on them on a Saturday. Say, hey, I'd love to spend some time with you. Maybe we could go do whatever you like to do, right? If they like to bowl, if they like to hike, if they like to go to the game, if they like to go to the beach, if they like to do anything, you try to acclimate yourself to their life and then bring in their people that are important to them. And I love it. So all really good stuff, Tony. Continue.
So week 3, polishing and training and image. So this is where a lot of leaders go wrong in the business, because when developing people, they try to change their training to match that person. And this is like kind of changing your pitch. So if how you train and develop changes each time, then you'll never be able to kind of gauge what is working, what isn't. And if someone doesn't learn day 1, and then on day 2, you actually go back to day 1. So you kind of go back to the basics and you adjust that person's learning curve. So never change your system. They should always adapt to your cycle. You always want to practice the same conversation with everyone you train. You will get better at these conversations and learn what to say and when to say it. And a good example that we use here is, for example, there's 2 ways I can coach you. Option 1, I could be more of a friend and you're going to like me, but it's going to take you a real long time to get this. Option 2, I'm going to be like a football coach and I will push you and you might not like me, but I promise you get better faster. And which option do you want? And what this does here, it gives you 2 things about the person. It shows you 2 things about them. It actually shows you where the mindset is. And then at this point, they also gave you permission to give 100% right to kind of hold them accountable and push them to be better. And another thing here is develop leaders. The key focus is mentality, not sales. And if you can manage how a person actually views negatives and problems, the sales will come. And focus on developing mentally strong people and you'll build leaders. Focus on salespeople and you'll kind of build salespeople. And the main thing here, we're not in the business of actually developing salespeople. We're in the business of building leaders through mentality shifts. And leaders only get promoted because they learn how to overcome negatives and learn how to solve problems proactively.
So, Tony, one of the things I've noticed with you is you're very intense when it comes to people that have negatives, or maybe there's somebody that's underperforming or they're just not holding themselves accountable. I've noticed in all these slides you talk about fishing for negatives. So everyone's got to understand there's going to be negatives. Like, that's okay. We know there's going to be negatives when you hire someone. A part of developing someone is dealing with those negatives. Tony, how do you approach negatives? So, and give us a couple examples when you see a guy that's showing up late, or you see somebody come in with a bad attitude, or you see somebody that's not performing in the field. What's your mindset towards those things, and how do you approach those conversations based on what they are?
I just actually pull them aside, ask them, hey, what's going on? You doing okay? And once you ask them that, it's kind of like the floodgates just kind of open up. They'll tell you everything that's going on. And you just kind of listen and you just kind of coach them on what they tell you. So the way I view negatives is I view everything as a positive in life. For every negative, there's always a positive. If I need my paycheck's low this week, guess what? I have to install more apps. I remember you used to tell me, I need a bigger paycheck, go write more apps. That was always the solution for me to get bigger checks. So I always went out, perform, because I know I needed to make more paychecks. I know I need to make more money. So basically just sit them down, talk to them, and just kind of fish for the negatives and kind of listen to them. So
Yeah. And I've also noticed you're really urgent. When you see something, you have it, you get it done right away. Tony, when you call me, there's no wasted words. Then it's like we get into the conversation so fast. And I think sometimes with leaders, they see a problem, but it's like paralysis by analysis. They're waiting. They're kind of afraid. I was definitely afraid of critical conversations because I was like, man, what if this person quits? What if they don't like me? I'm just going to sort of avoid it and go hide in the other room and just smile at them. How did that change for you? Because you tended to get with people right away. You weren't afraid of hitting the negative on the head. So how do you look at those conversations? I know you said there's always a positive, but you were so urgent, right? And so what made you that way? Why did you do that?
I just always want to fix everything sooner than later. So if you have a person who's in the field, if they roll 2 days, guess what? You're going on retrain day three. I'm not going to let this person go 3, 4, 5 days and actually roll and they get their paycheck and they're upset because they didn't make any money and they quit the business. So you always want to correct everything sooner than later. When I see a problem, like I said, I notice a lot of things and I always want to correct everything right away because I don't want to wait. I'm very urgent because I don't really have a lot of time to waste. Everything I do in life, I'm very urgent. I'm very fast and I'm very systematic in everything I do. Whether the time I wake up, the time I go to the gym, the time I eat, my prelims, my devos, everything, I'm very systematic. And it's a system that I use, any successful person in the world, they're very systematic. So everything's planned out and everything's laid out, the foundation, they just kind of follow the steps. So
For sure. Yeah, and you just seem to be somebody that attacks it, like you said, right away. And I noticed this too. Like, you don't want to let a problem fester, right? So you go at it right away. You fix it. You bring it to the manager. And then my other thing with the guys, and this is something I saw Tony do as well. Don't let your owner call out your problems, right? Don't let your owner tell you what's wrong with your team. You need to be the one that comes to them before they can say something, right? It's all about being proactive. So when you see a negative on your team, don't wait for that negative to become such a big issue where somebody else notices it. And what Tony did so well was as soon as there was a problem, I'd say, "Hey, Tony, what's up with this guy's production?" He's like, "Van, I'm already on it. I'm retraining him today." I'd be like, "Hey, Tony, how come so-and-so was late? I already had a quick conversation with him." Great. Hey, Tony, what's up with this guy's production last week? He didn't go an extra mile. I already reamed him out. If he does an extra mile this week, I'm blowing him out of the business. So it's kind of like all of you guys are going to deal with things, but when you see a problem, you need to be the first one to attack it. And if you don't know what to do, get with somebody who can help you attack it. But don't wait for somebody else to tell you about the problems on your team, the team that you're managing. Be the first one to know and be the first one to fix it. All right, Tony, good stuff. Actually, one question from one of our panelists or attendees. What can you show your people that would excite them in week one? Like, what's the thing you focus on to get them excited?
main thing in week one, I just focused on them. It's about building that relationship and just relating to that person and just show them that we have fun in the field. I just show them that field's not stressful. I'm in the field, I'm smiling, I'm enjoying myself, just having a good time. I'm just looking for people who actually want to speak to me, who actually need my help. And that's what I'm mainly just showing them week one. So.
Yep. Yeah. Focus on them, build a relationship, have fun. You want to make it look easy, not like you're a hardcore salesperson, and teach them the system. So I love it. All right, Tony, let's move forward.
Okay, this is actually where they push for leadership. So establish goals in the bigger picture. When do you actually want to get to leadership? When do you want to get to management? And if you go to office, where would you like to go? And this is where you ask them too, why are you here? What drives you? What's your step 7? And you start promoting the business and don't oversell it. And also you teach them how to actually explain the business also. And this is very important because you're only as good as you can make someone else. And also start coaching them according to their goals. The faster you want to accomplish your goals, the harder it's going to get. And you also want to mention there's 2 paths in life, where you can take the easy road, life gets harder, or you take the hard path and life gets easier. Which road do you actually want to take? And who you surround yourself is very important here because, better than you being good. Your people is only as strong as you are. So it's very important to set goals and standards high from this point. And be there to kind of help and coach them, when needed. This is kind of a team effort. I can't get promoted unless you get promoted. So what do you have to do to get your leadership this week or to management?
Yep. So when you're talking about leadership with a person, it seems like you're having these conversations, somewhat early, right? You're preempting them. But there's some people that come in that, maybe they're not thinking about the opportunity yet, right? They're thinking about money. They're thinking about how to, if they can actually stick to the business. So how do you balance based on the person, pushing the opportunity, but also making sure that they're focused on the sales and getting consistent with the money?
It all comes down to the person's learning curve. So a lot of some people where they're actually pushing for leadership in week 2 versus other people they're week 4 to week 6. And if that person's more advanced, guess what? I'm going to push them harder, and I'm going to make sure you help them out, make sure they get the leadership that week 2, week 3. And it also comes down to you the way you train them in the field. And you also just have to teach people how to make money. and just kind of be there to help them out. Like I said, I'm always calling them during, my second lap. Hey, how's it going? Are you doing okay? You need any help? What's going on with you? You know, where your numbers at? And what I used to do in the field a lot is for my second lap, if they're struggling, I actually invite them to come with me or actually go with them and kind of help them out for the second lap, just to see where the mentality's at, where the head's at, and just kind of help them out. So
Yep. Tony, one of the things I want to hit on was that when you were in the field, I remember there was a point when you were kind of struggling to promote people into leadership, right? You had a big team, but you didn't have a lot of people that were really strong, that were as good as you. And when we talk about pushing for leadership, I think it's important everybody understands that not everybody you hire is going to have what it takes, is going to have the motivation, the discipline, or the bigger picture to want to get promoted and even have the ability to. So Tony, there's something you did, and I think it's important for all the leaders to understand. When you're building a team, you have to cherry pick, right? Eventually, those first couple of weeks, you don't know who's going to show you what they have, but once people do show you the things you're looking for, you got to start cherry picking. So can you talk about that, a little bit about the 80-20 rule and how that applies to building not just leaders, but strong leaders?
I remember when we sat down and we came back from COVID and we sat down, we had a conversation. You told me I can get you to management in 2-3 months. And we made a chart of how many people I had on my team. So I had about 16 distributors on my team. So this is where we kind of sat down, okay, the 80-20 rule. Who's your top 2 distributors who you want to focus on this week to actually push the leadership? So once I started doing that and just focusing on the top 20%, that's when it kind of changed because I was able to dedicate more of my time. What I used to do is I used to try to coach and develop and carry one on my back, by myself. And it was just so hard. I couldn't push 16 people to leadership at the same time because everyone's learning curve is a lot different. So I was trying to do that myself and it just didn't work. And once I developed my first leader, it got so easy because other leaders started to follow. And every time I was closing interviews, I have 5 or 6 new starts, I couldn't train them all myself. I would pick my top one person new start. I would focus on them and the other new starts would actually get trained by my leaders.
Yep. So first, I guess the first lesson there is become a great recruiter so you can have more chances of people, because he became a good closer. So a lot of people on his team, the problem was he was trying to lift everybody up at the same time. He was splitting his time evenly between 15 people. And obviously that's not effective. So Tony identified, okay, I've got my depth chart of my team. Now when it comes to who's going to get into leadership, I've got to really focus on those key people, right? Belichick focused on Brady. He was his best player. That's how he knew he was going to turn him into the best leader possible. And the goal of the goal for you guys right now is to duplicate yourselves. You got to find people that you can make better than you. And you can't do that by giving them just a quarter of your time. So every week, everyone should be looking at their teams and saying, okay, doesn't matter if they're brand new or they're a leader, create a depth chart of your team and then focus on your top 20%, which goes back to what Tony talked about, belt loop theory. Those are the people you should be spending time with outside of the business, working with them in atmosphere. They should be in your car ride. You should be working with them in the field, having conversations, doing the dinners. If you do that, that's where you're going to duplicate yourself. And, it's just as important of who you don't spend time with versus who you do, because not everybody's going to get into leadership. So I think it's an important lesson for everybody. When you're developing leaders, you can't bring the whole team up. And listen, you're going to be wrong sometimes. You're going to guess and it's not going to be the right person. Then you're going to guess and it's going to be a different person that you didn't spend time with. That's okay. You'll get better at that with time, but don't forget about the 80-20 rule. Good stuff, Tony. Keep moving.
Okay. So next we're going to talk about the 5 levels of leadership and influence. So level 1, this is a position phase. So it's kind of like the entry level position. Actually requires no ability or no effort to achieve because anyone can be appointed to a position. And this is the stage where people actually follow you because they have to. And they kind of follow you because you have leverage on them. This is kind of the foundation here. So don't kind of get stuck on that level. And this is just the entry level phase. And the next one is level 2, which is the permission stage. So this is where people actually follow you because they want to, and you give them permission to lead them. And this is very important here because people do not care how much you know to actually show how much you care. And people will follow you if they not get along with you. So this is very important to actually establish that relationship with the person during this phase. And your ability to connect and relate is very crucial to your success and their success. And this phase, trust grows and also leads to success. And then for level 3 there, it's the production phase. So results, people follow because of what you have done for the organization. This is where momentum kind of kicks in. The company's growing because you're actually leading and you're actually ready for bigger challenges. And level 1 to level 3 is all about, getting to leadership. And then level 4 is actually the people development. So people follow you because of what you have done for them. When you invest in people, loyalty actually becomes a key factor here. And you start having successful experiences together. And this is where you develop leaders who can perform at a higher level. And this is the stage where you actually develop business partners. And level 5, this is the pinnacle. And this cannot be reached unless you are willing to invest, invest into the lives of others here. And people follow you because of who you are and what you represent in this phase. And your people actually raise you up. You actually stand out for everyone else, and you pretty much find success anywhere you go. And this is where you develop other leaders to level 4. And then the laws of leadership, the true measure of leadership is pretty much influence here. And the higher you go, the longer it takes. It's kind of like a crock process here. And the higher the level of commitment to your people, and the higher their commitment to you. And the higher you're at, and the easier it is for you to lead. And the higher you go, the greater success of your company also. And you never skip a level, you always build on that level. If you ignore that level, it actually pulls you down. And your people are never actually on the same level with you. And the higher you go, the less people are there with you. So,
yep. Well, guys, I recommend, and I'll have either Maddie or Elise send out the video, but this video by John Maxwell. John Maxwell is an author. He's a public speaker. He's ran businesses. He's very successful. He put out a video. It's actually a pretty old video, but it's completely relevant. And it's about the 5 levels of leadership, and then the 7 ways to climb it. So we'll make sure those videos get sent out. But this was a game changer for me. I remember trying to figure out how come certain people on my team were very influenced by me, where I would say something and they'd run through a brick wall. And then other people, they wouldn't listen to me, right? I'd have a critical conversation with them and they'd completely ignore me. And I was like, what just happened, right? And I didn't realize that you're on different levels with different people. So when you guys look at this, this is the 5 levels that you'll climb with each person you have a business relationship with. And if you kind of look at each level, it's so true, right? The first level is given to you. The next level is the relationship level, where you can't go along unless you get along. So you got to spend that time with someone where they like you, right? Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is a great book on just building relationships with people. You move up, people will follow you because they respect what you do from a performance standpoint. So you could be a great person, but if you don't set the pace in your office, people's influence of you will be low because you're not a pace setter. They want to be a pace setter. The 4th level, like Tony talked about, is that investment in others in terms of teaching and coaching and developing. And when you get really good at making other people better, they know they're better off by following you because of what you've done for them. Their achievements are only there unless, if not for you, they wouldn't have happened. And so now that you get really good at level 4, level 5 is given to you just like the first level, where people will go anywhere and everywhere for you. And all of us know that difference of feeling when you have those really close people. And when you say, hey, we're going across the country, just like Tony's like, hey, I'm going to Atlanta. 4 guys said, when are we leaving? Right. And the reason why is because Tony invested. He went through these phases with these guys. And if Tony just met somebody and he said, hey, let's go to Atlanta, the odds of that person being influenced and saying, okay, I'm down, are very low. So we'll send the video links for the 5 levels of leadership and then how to climb them. It's like a 48-minute video. It's phenomenal. I recommend you guys watching it. But let's go over some questions. So relationships and fun in the field is condensed, focused of week 1. What is the quick summary, 2 or 3 words for focus of weeks 2, 3, and 4? So we want to go back to week 2 there, Tony.
Okay, so week 2. Okay, so go back to the slide. Okay. Okay. So for week 2, it's conversations and instilling confidence. Week 3, polishing and training an image. And the week 4 is push for leadership.
Nice. Good. Well, so Tony, I got a couple more questions, and guys, please ask questions because we want to get as much out of this as we can. When you have new people on your team and you just met them and you can tell someone maybe isn't into the business, like you give it a shot. How long do you give somebody before you say, hey, this isn't for you? I think the hard part for people is pushing people out because they kind of think they need to hold on to everybody. But there's going to be certain people that if you hold on to them, you're going to lose the respect of the people that are there, right? And their negative attitude will end up bleeding into the rest of your team. So what's your mindset on removing people from the business, and how do you go about doing that in a professional way?
What I usually do, I just kind of sit down with them. So, if a person actually shows up to the business every day, they're on time, it shows me that person wants to be here. But if I sit down and just ask them, hey, what's your step seven? Why are you here? What do you want to do? Where's your smart goals? Your short term, midterm, long term. And I just kind of sit there and kind of coach them and kind of look at that. And we just kind of establish a game plan. Hey, this is what we're gonna do. I'll give you 2 to 3 weeks to get the leadership. If it doesn't work out, hey, no hard feelings. We have other positions in the company. We can find another job for you. I give you a letter of recommendation. So I kind of put that fear and loss from the beginning, telling them this is not the field is not 2 to 3 years. Our goal is to get your leadership within 4 to 6 weeks, get your management within 6 months to 12 months. So this is a management training program. What I'm looking for here is a potential business partner, potential owner. Do you actually see yourself running a business? And I
Yeah.
just established that from the beginning.
And it seems like a lot of people they're kind of afraid to talk about how this is leadership. This is not a long-term sales position. The more you have conversations like that in their first couple of weeks about how, hey, listen, the goal here is to get promoted. You don't say, hey, would you like to get promoted? Hey, would it be okay with you if you manage people? Tony does a great job of just assuming that someone's here for the opportunity, just the same way he assumes that someone wants to make more money or wants to grow. I think sometimes we give the applicant, or we give the person on our team a little too much leeway of like how to think or how to look at things. And I'm not saying we don't be open minded, we listen, but the more you approach conversations like, hey, listen, like this is about leadership, this is about growth. I'm assuming you want to grow here, right? I'm assuming you don't want to be entry level. So what is your plan? And then the other thing, Tony, I know we talked about this, but when you get to know people, you get to know their goals. And that's where coaching people through their goals is more important, is the way to go, as opposed to using your own goals to coach them. And so, Tony, when you do these one-on-ones and you do these dinners, you tend to get to that information and then you use that in these conversations, I'm assuming.
Mhm. So I usually, like I said, I usually spend the dinner just 80% getting to know the person. So I'm just talking, asking questions, and whatever they like, I'm saying, hey, it's amazing. Hey, what do you like to do? I like to play basketball. Hey, if you watch the NBA Finals, who do you think is going to win this year? And I just kind of relate, have that person talk, because everyone always likes to talk about what they like to do. So I'm just making that person feel comfortable. Guess what? It's like my best friend, just relating to the person, making them feel, just building that relationship with them, making them feel comfortable. So let me get it go. So
Yeah. Now, Tony, when you see someone that comes out the gate hot and then they struggle, right? We've seen that happen before. Maybe someone that's new, they go solo, they start doing apps, and then maybe they get promoted or they don't quite get promoted and they kind of go down. One of the things I've seen you do really well is, we talked about it earlier, but you get guys into conversations quick and you get them on a retrain quick. And the other difference is when you put them on a retrain, you don't just do it for a day. They're with you until the confidence is fixed, until the pitch is fixed, until they really walk out of that like, wow, we call it like a sticky retrain. We want the information to be sticky. So what's your mentality on retrains, whether it's before a guy gets to leadership or if a guy is just inconsistent with the sales? How do you look at working with somebody to make sure that they're good and you don't let them go solo again until they're really finished with that retrain?
a lot of times when new people come to the business, they're just so excited about the opportunity, and they don't know any better. When I came into the business, I was so excited. I was selling Internet 18s, Internet 25, like it was the best thing on the planet. Customers just saw me so excited. My C factors, I was just the opportunity. People were just like, oh man, this guy's amazing. Internet 18, Internet 25, it's the fastest internet out there. It's a fiber 25 or fiber 18. So I just sell it like it was the best thing out there. I was just confident in my ability. And what I see a lot of people do when they find success, what they do is they tend to start trying to sell on personality or deviate off the pitch. And that's when they kind of hit that little slump, and where they go a week or a couple of days and they roll. And that's when you kind of want to just correct everything. You pull them to the side. Hey, just stick to the basics. What was working for you in week 2 when you went solo, when you're dropping all those apps? What was working for you in week 3? And when you take them on a retrain, 3 things that you want to do: look, listen, and learn. So they're going to be with me for 1 to 2 or 3 days, depending on how long it takes me to correct that person. But it's my job, my responsibility to make sure I correct this and fix this sooner than later and make sure this person gets better. If I'm not doing that correctly, guess what? I'm letting this person down. So I have to make sure that I can show and teach these people how to make money in the field.
That's great. Okay, guys, we got a question here. I'm typically a high production leader, but I've had a hard time retraining new starts because I roll with them in the field. What can I do to improve retraining my guys? So he's a guy that was really good at sales. He's got people on his team, and now he's struggling to sell with new guys with him. So what do you think's happening there?
I love training in the field because it's so much funner. It's funner being in the field with someone else than being by yourself. Does that make sense? Because you have to do everything by the book. Anything you do bad, any bad habit on the field, they're going to do 10 times worse. So when I used to love double, triple training in the field, because I would actually have the retrainers with me, And a lot of managers do this where they use them to get in houses. So I tell them, hey, if you start a conversation, you get into a house, I'll give you the whole sale. So it kind of motivates them to go out there and get their talk tos up and kind of builds that confidence in them to help them get better.
That's great. Yeah, and it seems like a lot of guys when they go out on their own, they're selling so much on personality, and they're just doing things that are really not duplicatable. I remember when I was first building my team, I was selling, but people would just quit. And the common thing was, hey, Van's a great guy, but I can't do this, right? And sometimes it's better to not be so aggressive, or not sometimes, a lot of the times it's better to not be so aggressive with your people, to show them how to tell a customer no, to disqualify, and teach them how to see a lot of people. And I think leaders get really caught up in turning no's into yeses, and that ends up being really tough when you're with people because they can sense the energy that it's just not right. And I think we lose way more people than we realize by being too salesy, right? By trying to close too many deals, and eventually that kind of becomes something that hurts your attitude. Because if you're trying to turn no's into yeses all day, not only does the customer get a bad taste in their mouth, but eventually it beats you up. Your attitude gets tested. And if they watch you do that, first of all, it's going to be tough for you to maintain that. But they're going to look at this and say, there's no way I can do this business because this person's a total sales monster. And we got to teach our people how to have a great attitude, how to see a lot of people, how to disqualify quickly, and really work the system. And obviously, there's closing techniques, there's all that other stuff. But Tony, what I remember about you is you were just so systematic that you really taught your people how to focus on the system and not look at it like they got to be a salesperson or be all personality.
Yeah.
That's really good stuff. Tony, can you go back to your first page really quick that has all your information on it? So guys, Tony has taken the time today and really given us a lot of great information. I have a ton of notes. I can't wait to run my leaders meeting this morning on this. But please reach out because Tony's on fire right now. He just moved across the country. He's promoted more managers than anybody in the last 6 or 7 months. And he's really, really looking at the future saying, hey, I want to run this program, not only with AT&T, but I want to be somebody who's helped running the company in a shorter time than we've ever seen. So we really love it. So please take that information. We got one more question here. And if any other questions come through, we got time. What techniques, Tony, do you use to not oversell the business, especially when you have someone that's young and pretty good, but not necessarily goal oriented? Good question.
So what I usually do is I'm not talking too much big picture with them. I'm not, going to regional, national. I'm just talking about building one office where you want to be at, in the next 6 to 12 months. I always coach them according to the goals. And I just kind of listen, and I ask them questions. Do you see yourself actually running a business or organization? Do you see yourself as a business owner? And that's just pretty much how I coach them, develop themselves.
Yeah, I'm sure you have different types of people, right? Like if you have a kid, I mean, you've had a lot of young guys in your team, Tony, that took a while to kind of mature, right?
Yeah.
Where they came in, they were young, maybe they didn't think a lot of themselves yet, and maybe they just never had that confidence of thinking they can manage something. So one of the things I saw you do is you focused a lot on the relationship and the trust and the bond. And then the other thing was you really just taught them good habits and you focused on their bad habits and made them good. And you really were tough on them about those things first, which once, like we talked about the 4 levels or 5 levels of leadership, once someone sees themselves getting better, then they're going to start thinking long-term of what they can accomplish. And one of the things I learned a long time ago is it's really hard to push someone that isn't excited, right? It's hard to ask a lot of someone, to do more when they don't even have the confidence to do what they're doing now. But it's so easy to push people who are doing well, right? So the better someone does, the more you can talk big picture and then demand that they raise their game to accomplish those things, right? So it's kind of, it depends on the applicant as well. So, well, Tony, again, I've had a great time talking to you today. It's always a pleasure. We talk all the time, but I think today's topic was extremely relevant and important for where we are in our business. We have a really exciting 3 months coming up. Guys, next week, Jared Nwamaway, who's been on a couple calls, whether it's an owner's call or a leader's call on Sundays, he's going to be talking to you guys. And he's one of the best speakers we have. And as you guys know, it's been a gauntlet of amazing topics and great speakers. And so we're going to continue this. And the next wave of speakers, some of these people are going to be very new in ownership, like Tony, people that are really doing well early in the business. And so we can't wait. So please spread the word. Next week, Tuesday, Jared Nwamaway will be speaking. Tony, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. We're really excited for you and we're proud of what you've accomplished, but you got a big challenge out there in Atlanta to prove that Fresno wasn't a fluke. So we're excited for you and looking forward to seeing you soon, Tony.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.